Welcome to the RotoWire NFL DFS show. I'm Adam Zdroik, stepping in for Scott this week, joined by Ryan Belongia. We're talking week 2 in the NFL. Ryan, Thursday night, I did not have DeAndre Swift in my lineup. Did you come away with any winnings?
I did okay. I lost a little bit of money, but what was it?
Okay,
Oh yeah,
lost
Hurts.
a little bit.
Yeah, well, in Showdown, that's okay.
Yeah.
What was it? Oh, Hurts not in the optimal. I jammed Hurts, and yeah, he ended up, despite 2 rushing touchdowns, not finishing in the optimal. So many touchdowns and Jefferson going off. So yeah, that did me in.
Hockenson I think he got the final touchdown of the game, so that kind of tilted some things. But one of our subscribers, I think he said in our Discord, also a fellow soccer DFS player, he tied with 330 other people in the Millie Maker, something like that. So just another classic showdown slate.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, and in first place was it ended up being for 4,000. When there's a million up top, and that was actually the 38th most duped lineup. So there were 37 lineups that would have chopped for even more. So I'm putting in about 20 lineups per showdown and trying to make lineups that aren't going to chop with all those people. So you expect to lose more often playing like that, but yeah, great to get a win.
Yeah. All right, so week 2, though, the rest of week 2, we got a big slate on Sunday, as usual. We got the betting page up just to look at all the odds here that we're dealing with. This is rotowire.com/betting/NFL/odds. We got a bunch of stuff here. So as we get into the slate, as we're talking a little bit here, how did week 1 go for you, I guess? We talked about Thursday, but week 1, a lot of unknowns, but at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of predictable things. I think you came away up money, if I can remember correctly. But how do you think the transition here is from week 1 to week 2?
Well, just week 1, it was basically if you didn't have Tyreek Hill, you weren't going to make any money. And I didn't have much Tyreek Hill. I did in the afternoon slate, but he did me in the main slate at the end, which is unfortunate because I cashed all the high stakes GPPs I played, and none of them had Tyreek Hill. It was really unfortunate. And then I ended up losing in cash games with his last touchdown. Yeah, I don't know. So it was frustrating. One of those slates where like one player just sort of decides the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into last week, but some of the ownership surprised me too. And, Tyreek ended up being the most popular player on the slate, which I guess is expected. That was the best game environment and people wanted exposure to it. So it makes sense. He hit, a 99th percentile ceiling outcome, and sometimes that's just the way it goes. But yeah, this week is it has some similarities in that there's only one game with the total above 50 again, which is the Chiefs Jags game. So that's going to be a popular target for stacks, but I think this week there are more games that look good for stacks, at least to me. I see 5 or 6 games that I wouldn't mind stacking. You said, 5 or 6 games that I really wouldn't mind stacking, and I think that's more than usual. And then week 2 is also interesting because, people think they know
Overreaction.
So right. Overreaction just after week 1, which you don't really know anything. And so now we have this 1 week data to go off of, and yeah, people overreact to it. And then, yeah, so we'll get into it. It's interesting. I like week 2 for that reason.
Yeah, I think also just in terms of this Chiefs Jaguars game, one of the reasons you're not going to be able to stack this is maybe a little more difficult than some of these other ones to stack just because of the Chiefs receiver situation. I mean, we saw in their first game what happened with their wide receivers and without Travis Kelce. Now it's expected Kelce's going to be back, but it's not really that easy to stack this passing offense if you look at other places other than Kelce, just because of I remember in the showdown, like Kadarius Toney was maybe 30% or something like that. I mean, he's probably going to be 0 on this one after what happened, but just in terms of the Chiefs being in this matchup And it was kind of how it was last season. It was, okay, Kelsey, tight end, and who else is going to show up? I mean, Juju was there last season, but now it almost, I mean, maybe we'll get a better read on it as the games move on. But right now, it just seems like could be really anyone who leads the Chiefs outside of Kelsey at wide receiver there.
Yep, I know. I agree. I think if I was going to stack the Chiefs, it might just be Mahomes and Kelsey. Last week was as good as any for those Chiefs wide receivers to have a good game, and they all failed. Sky Moore was the chalkiest, and he didn't get a target till the third quarter. I don't think he caught a pass. Maybe one pass. I don't remember. Kadarius Toney had 4 big drops, and then Valdez-Scantling was targeted twice. And then Rashee Rice, I guess, was the only one that did okay. But, he's going to continue to be a low volume guy for the time being. He's just not out there as much as the other guys. So, yeah, I don't really want to stack any of those Chiefs wide receivers, but I would also assume that most people feel the same way. So I wouldn't mind playing them in the largest field GPPs, like the $3.20 max, or if you're playing Millie Maker lineups, then I think those Chiefs wide receivers are pretty good plays. And you play Mahomes or you play Kelsey as well, but you don't have to. But yeah, I would be more likely to take chances on those guys in the big GPPs. I'm not going to look to them in single entry stuff.
I think we'll play a game later of pick the Chiefs wide receiver. I think we have 7 options, and they're all below 5K. We're gonna play that game once we get to a wide receiver.
Okay, I'll keep it in mind.
We'll see how fun it is. I'm not sure how fun it will be, but maybe it will be. Maybe it will be. But let's start with quarterbacks here as we get into it. We're talking about Mahomes a little bit. Mahomes is, max price, highest price here, 8,300 against the Jaguars. And just starting with cash games here, I mean, Mahomes is pretty much popular on every slate, almost against no matter who you play. But on this one, I don't know if you actually have to go with Mahomes here in cash games, because there are a few cheaper options that seem fairly safe. You got multiple running quarterbacks in this on this slate in okay matchups. Justin Fields is a little more expensive. Anthony Richardson is cheap. Daniel Jones is cheap. There's a bunch of cheaper players here. So what's your first move here, just in terms of cash games at quarterback?
Yeah, I think in terms of cash games, Mahomes probably shouldn't be considered, at least for me. He's expensive and he doesn't have the rushing upside that some of the guys below him have. So I think it's straightforward in the sense that it's Josh Allen or spend down. This is a good spot for Allen at home against the Raiders, sort of a bounce back spot for Buffalo. He projects the best in terms of floor and ceiling. So, yeah, if I'm spending up, it's going to be for Josh Allen. And then you mentioned the guys that you could maybe save some money with. Richardson did it for people last week. Daniel Jones projects well. Geno Smith, Brock Purdy. For me, it's hard to trust those guys still.
Jared Goff.
Goff too, sure. So I want to spend up for Allen if I can.
If you can. Yeah, I think that if you don't, I think that 6K range is pretty decent. I mean, all those quarterbacks, or most of them, have pretty good matchups. Like Richardson's going against the Texans, Jones against the Cardinals, and Goff against the Seahawks. All pretty favorable games there. And so I think that's the reason why you can go down and feel pretty comfortable that
it's very good. It's a very good range, but you still have to pick one. If you could give me, 3 of them, and I take the highest score out of the bunch, then yeah, I'll play that range. But it's for me at least. You still got to pick one for cash. I don't know. Does one stand out for you?
My first inclination was Goff, because I do like the matchup. They just got torched by Stafford. That matchup last season also had a ton of points, and I just think the Lions offense didn't really look that great in the opener, but now it's their home opener here. I think that I think Goff's going to get enough is what I'll say. Whereas with Richardson and Jones, okay, you kind of need the rushing yards for them to hit value, because I mean, it's still kind of iffy in terms of, what they're going to do through the air kind of a thing. So it's kind of the opposite. We're not going to get rushing yards from Goff, but I did have a question for you. So you're on Allen over Mahomes here because you mentioned Mahomes maybe doesn't have the rushing floor, but we saw in that first game, Kelsey wasn't there, so maybe that led to Mahomes running a little bit more because he wasn't really trusting his wide receivers much. But is this just more of a Mahomes in general probably doesn't run as much as Josh Allen does. And I mean, as we look at Josh Allen here, as he's getting older, are his coaches going to start telling him to, stop running head first into defenders here, or is he just going to be the same Josh Allen as he gets older?
I don't know. It's sometimes that never leaves a player, but yeah, I get your point. Mahomes can run, and we see him run in the playoffs all the time. I think part of that was because part of that last week is not having Kelsey, but Allen's going to run for more touchdowns this season, and Allen's going to run more, inside the 10, inside the 5. I think it's a safer rushing floor than Mahomes has.
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes will, he'll pass it between his legs, around his back, something like that, and Allen will just run it in. He'll just run into a defender and hope he can run him over, kind of a thing. So I think that's where your theory is coming from, I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, Allen didn't look great last week. What do you have? 4 turnovers. He's been making a lot of mistakes going back to last season. I get that people are off Allen. I'm still a believer, at least in terms of fantasy. It's a pretty good spot obviously it's a good spot for the Chiefs. It's a good spot for the Bills. I feel good about those expensive quarterbacks. I do. I like Goff too, though. I agree with everything you said. I think we'll talk about that game maybe a little more. I think it's a good game to stack. Definitely like Goff and the Lions to stack.
Yeah. Do you want to get into some just tournament ideas here for
Sure. Yeah.
So Zach Wilson is your number one, I assume. He's sub 5K, pretty easy to plug in.
I think Zach Wilson's probably out of the question this week against that Cowboys defense that looks pretty good. There are some 5K guys. You could play Tannehill. You could play Baker Mayfield. But yeah, no, tournament. I like the Lions. You said, or I like Goff and Lions stacks. You said about that game last season. He threw for like 380 yards and 4 touchdowns without Amon-Ra.
Yeah, it was
against
Seattle, 35 or something like that.
Yeah, so here's the thing that game, the numbers back that game up for stacking. Lions games last year at Ford Field had produced the most points in the league. While on the other side, Seahawks games, I think it's for the last 3 years now, the Seahawks have allowed the most opponent plays in the league. So obviously that's what we're looking for game stacks.
It's not good.
You want a lot of plays, and yeah, the Seattle defense just isn't very good. This game also features like a big mismatch in that the Lions have one of the best offensive lines in the league, and the Seahawks have one of the worst defensive lines in the league. So yeah, everything just, home opener for the Lions. It looks like a fantastic spot.
In terms of the game stack, though, on the other end of that, I don't know if I'd go. Would you go? How heavy would you go Seahawks if you're on the Lions here? Are you expecting it to be 30-30 kind of game, such as last year? We saw
really.
Yeah, we saw the Seahawks in their week 1 game kind of fell apart in the second half. I believe they lost 2 offensive linemen in that game against the Rams. And now, maybe we'll say the Lions defense is slightly better than they were last season. So you throw that in there as well. So, I mean, it's not like you're going to want Kenneth Walker in this spot, or, I mean, maybe you'll probably plug in one of their wide receivers is kind of what you're thinking probably.
Yeah, but I also think, if you were getting at, you can stack this game and it can be 35-10, or, blowout stacks can work too. You really only need Goff plus Amon-Ra plus either Laporta or Reynolds or whatever. Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily need to have a run back is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, also the Lions defense isn't great either. And we saw them get in shootouts. And the thing about the Seahawks is I think most people are kind of feeling like that. So I don't think they're going to be very popular. especially the wide receivers. I don't mind DK Metcalf. I don't think he'll be popular at all, considering, we'll talk about receiver later, but all the receivers above him are going to be very popular, at least most of them. So yeah, no one's really going to play Metcalf. And then Kenneth Walker, I think, is cheap. And I don't think he'll be very popular either. So I don't mind that if you want to full stack that game. But yeah, you don't have to run it back.
We mentioned overreactions earlier. How much are people just looking at game logs here after 1 week? We see these Seahawks game logs not great.
I mean, a lot.
Yeah.
People were all over the Seahawks last week. People played them in Survivor. I bet them. People played Kenneth Walker in cash games. I mean, and now all of us, after 1 week in a great matchup, nobody wants to play them. Yeah, I'm not on board with that. I think I don't mind taking chances on the Seahawks. You're right, receiver is tough now that they've added Smith and Jigba. But I think Metcalf still has a big ceiling.
Yeah, that Lockett line last week is definitely worrying.
He did get checked for a concussion and missed a little bit, but came back. So maybe that had something to do with it.
Mm-hmm. So otherwise, in terms of tournaments and quarterbacks you want to look at, what about Joe Burrow here? How many people are be looking at Joe Burrow? They see the matchup and it's like, okay, divisional matchup, Ravens, but the Ravens have a ton of injuries. And I think the one thing maybe holding me back from going maybe a little bit heavier on Burrow is just what we saw last week. He kind of needs some more reps after not really playing in the preseason because of his calf injury. But I don't think many people are going to be actually considering him here. And I think this is maybe hopefully a week of training for Burrow, a week back in practice kind of a thing. Maybe this team is a little closer than they were last week. But just the fact that they get this matchup where the Ravens, they didn't give up many points last week against the Texans, but I wouldn't say they played really that well. And then I think they added some injuries to that. But I feel like this is a pretty, for tournaments, pretty good spot just to go with Burrow and a receiver or two that not really many people are going to be looking at.
Yep. I love this spot for the Bengals and for Burrow. I think if you're a believer in Burrow, you have to love this spot. I agree. I think enough people are going to be off it. That was the first tournament lineup I made this week. I agree with everything you said, actually. I think the Ravens are sort of there for the taking here. And yeah, after that performance by the Bengals last week, I think obviously they're going to want to rebound. They beat the Ravens twice at home last season. And yeah, I think you mentioned some injuries on the Ravens side. If Joe Burrow is any sharper, they can put up some points here. Yeah, I love that. I love that Burrow stack. And who'd you run it back with? Maybe Zay Flowers. I mean, he seems like the obvious one. The Ravens. I don't know if I want to go anywhere else on the Ravens side.
Yeah, probably not. If you want to, I don't know.
Maybe Justice Hill falls into the end zone twice again somehow.
Yeah, I was gonna say guess on a running back who gets touchdowns, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we really wanted to take a chance, Mark Andrews. I don't think people are going to trust Andrews at all coming off that injury, and especially with people are going to spend up at tight end, they're going to spend up for Kelsey. So maybe for leverage if you want to do that, but yeah, I do like the Bengals stack.
I'm just reading Andrew's update. He's continuing to get better. He's been a limited participant at practice this week. So it looks like he's probably going to gut it out. That doesn't mean he's going to be 100%, but he will be playing. So I guess people may look that way, but probably not in my wheelhouse, though. Probably not in my wheelhouse. Yeah, you mentioned Zay Flowers. I think Bateman started with a catch or two, and then he didn't really do too much else against the Texans. Beckham will probably always get looks because he's Beckham, but
yeah, Bateman's lack of playing time was a bit surprising. I forget exactly what it was, but I want to say he was just out there for a little more than half the time, and people, I guess, were expecting him to be an every down player. I don't know. Maybe that changes again. This is just week one.
Yeah, week one in a game where it never really looked out.
A weird game, right? Yeah, they didn't
out
need
of reach,
to be
yeah.
Right.
Maybe they played some things a little safer, but we'll see how the Ravens look going forward, at least offensively. Otherwise, I think this is also a spot here. We got Justin Herbert at the Titans. I think that's maybe the one that stands out to me. I'm not sure anything else really stands out just looking at the odds on this page here. But what do you think about Justin Herbert, where the Titans, usually pretty solid run defense, and their secondary seems to get roasted, has been getting roasted, I feel like, the past few years. And Chargers coming off a game in which they ran pretty freely against the Dolphins. Now, if they don't run freely, maybe this is a Justin Herbert spot as well.
Yep. I agree with you on that one too. Everybody always talks about the Titans defense being a pass funnel. We have an injury question about Austin Eckler. It looks like maybe he's going to be out. We don't know yet. But yeah, the way to beat the Titans is through the air. So people were on Herbert stacks last week. I don't know. I think, people will probably be on them again, but not like they won't be crazy popular, I don't think. And I know their receivers won't be popular. So yeah, I think it's a good game to stack. You could run it back with Derrick Henry if you want. The Chargers defense hasn't been very good against the run.
Yeah, what do you think in terms of the just quarterback popularity? You think it's Mahomes and Allen, and then kind of a few other players in there, Burrow and Herbert, and maybe you go down to Goff a little bit, kind of thing? You think it's after Mahomes and Allen, it's kind of pretty evenly spread out, you'd say?
Yes. Yeah. I think Allen and Mahomes will probably be the top two, followed closely by Burrow, Jones, Trevor Lawrence, and then Geno Smith and Goff. But yeah, it's all going to be similar. Maybe Herbert's not going to be that high owned. I kind of like that stack.
Okay. I feel like Sunday, 8 o'clock after the games, it's like, okay, well, Justin Fields, he just ran for 150 yards and he passed for 150 yards, but he had, I don't know, 3-4 touchdowns or something like that. It's like, well, yeah, this is what happens when it's a running quarterback. And we didn't really mention him, so I felt like I had to throw that in there just because that's just always in play, but people aren't really going to look that way.
No, I'm glad you mentioned it because I was sort of thinking the same thing last week in that matchup against the Packers. Nobody played Fields, and I thought I didn't play him either, but yeah, it's always in the back of your head because he's such a good leverage play because no one's going to pay that price for him. And it makes sense because that's just a bad game environment that's expected to be slow. But you're right, he just needs to rush for over 102 touchdowns. We saw him do it last season.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to play Fields.
Yeah. Anything else at quarterback here outside of, Desmond Ridder and Zach Wilson? Anything else we got?
Yeah, just the other side of that KC Jacksonville game. I think Lawrence would be my preferred option in that game if I had to pick one. I definitely like the 1,600 salary savings from Lawrence to Mahomes. I like his receivers a lot better. I think it's very easy to just pair him with Calvin Ridley and then one other guy. You don't even have to pair him with one other guy, but you can. I think Zay Jones played all the snaps as the number 2 wide receiver last week. People were disappointed in Christian Kirk only playing in the slot. So he wasn't out there that much, and I think he only caught one ball. Jacksonville used more 2 tight end sets than usual. Again, though, this is one game, and in a game where in this game might be a shootout. They might have to, if they're passing, Kirk's going to be out there. No one's going to play Kirk. So, that's like a leverage option that I'd consider in bigger field tournaments. But yeah, I want some exposure to Calvin Ridley. So I kind of like Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I think that Kirk call is, I think you just highlight here. It's only been one game, and they played against the Colts. Playing against the Chiefs is going to be different for him. We saw what Kirk did last season, and we know Calvin Ridley's there, so maybe it's, the whole season Kirk kind of disappoints kind of thing, but not many people are going to look at him. They're going to look at his previous games, see what he did, and like, I don't really want this 5,100. I can find something else. And if you're in that Jaguar stack or even on the other side of a Chiefs stack, something like that, just a guy that won't be very popular that, has the upside. Maybe Ridley is double teamed or something by this Chiefs defense, and that leaves Kirk open, something like that. I mean, it's in the realm of possibility here, and he's only 5,100 as well. So
yeah,
I
it
think
makes
that's
perfect sense from that standpoint. He's definitely going to be the least popular of
yeah,
all the pass catchers.
yeah. All right, so before we get to running back, if you're looking for a place to play head-to-head fantasy football games without the huge tournament salary caps or complicated game types, then Rival Fantasy is where you want to play this NFL season. From a twist on a classic game with Fantasy Bingo, where players generate a lineup to complete achievements, and Get Bingo to head-to-head fantasy challenges where you'll pick which of two players will score more fantasy points. This is the best of fantasy sports. For the 2023 NFL season, Rival Fantasy is offering new users a $200 deposit match plus a $25 first play voucher. Rival Fantasy is so confident you love the experience, they're giving you money to play out of the gate. Experience the future of fantasy sports on Rival Fantasy and become a rival today. Rivals. Austin Eckler, probably not going to play. Connor McCaffrey, 8,900, max price. I believe he's the most expensive player on the slate. You're not looking at McCaffrey on this slate here at Los Angeles, or are you? You're smirking here.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to. He still projects pretty well, and he's yeah. I don't know. It's annoying that he's the most expensive by that much. I'd rather try to jam in some of these receivers, but I mean, he's just far and away the best running back on the slate. I mean, he played more than people thought he was going to play last week. We know what kind of upside he has. I don't know. I I do have some interest in McCaffrey. What you don't? I guess I take it.
No, I wouldn't say that. He is expensive, but if you can find the room in your team, you're probably not going to be spending on. Well, probably not going to be spending on Mahomes or Allen if you have McCaffrey in your team. But I mean, you could figure it out if you really wanted to. But how much does this matchup matter? Okay, Aaron Donald, Rams, they played well last week. This isn't the same Rams defense from 2 years ago, though. And you look at the matchup last week, you probably argue the Steelers defense probably better overall than the Rams defense. So how much does even this matchup matter playing at Los Angeles? These teams are familiar with each other. I think Shanahan has a pretty good hold on what the Rams do in general. So does that even matter, or is the main worry here just that he's 8,900 and the most expensive player?
No, I definitely think of the matchup too. Like, it seems like a decent spot in that the Rams, are the better team pretty much everywhere. You can see that by the line. They're pretty big favorites. I don't -7, I think. So, it should be a decent game script for McCaffrey. People expected that last week was the perfect week to do it, but to use Elijah Mitchell more. And I don't know why they didn't last week. If they're going to use McCaffrey like they used him last week, he's just like far and away the best play on the slate. So at running back, especially with assuming Eckler's out, so that makes him pretty intriguing. It depends where there's going to be value as well. If there's some good cheap running backs, then you probably want to play them and spend up at receiver. But if there's punt wide receivers that you're confident in, then maybe you can spend up at running back. Just in general, though, 8,900, it's tough to get in for cash games, but he does project the best, obviously.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of the other options here, if without Eckler in there, what do we think about Saquon Barkley? 8K. I think you have to just take into account just the matchup here. We know the Giants didn't score in their first game, and Barkley still got obviously he didn't get a touchdown, but okay, he was nearing 10 points. He still got plenty of touches, which was to be expected. Going against the Cardinals here, who they were fine in their first game. I don't know how much that matchup is going to tell us in this one, but they're not expected to be a good defense here. But 8K, is it worth it to go down to Barkley this to save this $900 when McCaffrey's right there, when we know what we're getting from McCaffrey? Or do you think maybe a better matchup is worth looking at here for Barkley?
Yeah, I don't think it's worth it in cash games, but I think in tournaments it seems good just because Barkley will be less popular. In cash games, I'd say you could go all the way down to Pollard if you were trying to save a little money.
Pollard against the Jets?
Yeah, obviously the Jets have a great defense, but that offense is not going to be able to hold the ball. We talked a little bit about Zach Wilson, and Pollard's role is just so good in that he catches passes. They use him around the goal line now without Zeke. Brandon Cooks is out, so this is one of those where
in cash games you want Pollard
over Saquon. I would,
okay.
yeah. Like he's hit. I think, yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's not like a clear-cut call. I just think the $500 makes him project a little better. He plays for a better offense. He has a little bit more of a receiving floor. So yeah, I would take Pollard over. I probably won't play either of them. I guess I haven't thought about it a ton because I'll probably spend down at both running back spots.
Yeah. Okay. I kind of like Josh Jacobs. You mentioned Derrick Henry in terms of a run back here against the Chargers, but Josh Jacobs, this Bills defense, they gave up the 80-yard run or whatever to Breece Hall. They lost the game. They could not beat the Jets. They could not stop the Jets from running the ball, getting first downs late in the game, and they lost against the Jets, who had Zach Wilson at quarterback. Josh Jacobs, I believe he came out and said he was terrible in the first game because he wasn't ready. He wasn't in training camp because of his contract issues. I mean, you look at his numbers, 2.5 yards per carry. But, I mean, you kind of got to also throw in there that was at Denver. That was against the Broncos, who are a pretty good defense, have always been a pretty good defense. Also a mile high. So you also have to throw that in there. So throwing some fatigue issues in there as well. Now against the Bills. Okay, maybe not cash games, but I still think if you're looking in this range, I still think this is a pretty safe play for cash games. And if not, I mean, I don't know if he's going to be that popular for tournaments, though.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said. If you have 7,100 left as a last spot, yeah, I even think he would be fine. He projects pretty good in this spot, just slightly below Tony Pollard, but better than Saquon Barkley. I'm looking at two different projections. So yeah, like 7,100 is pretty cheap for Jacobs. I have a lot of interest in using him as a run back in my Bills stacks. I think Jacoby Myers being out too might add a reception or two to Jacobs. Yes. So yeah, I agree with everything you said.
So for the cheaper running backs that you were looking at, let's see if we can guess what you're on to.
Before you guess, let's say that Eckler is out.
Oh, okay. Well, you got Josh Kelly here at 5K.
So yeah, I think that's a good starting point for cash games. Obviously, Kelly would be popular for 5K. I mean, he's just so cheap, and we saw he looked pretty good last week. 16 carries, 91 yards, and a touchdown. Now, it's not a great spot. We talked about Tennessee being a pass funnel and usually pretty good against the run. But 5K, playing for a very good offense, it's kind of a no-brainer for cash games, at least in my opinion. So, yeah, Kelly, if Eckler's out, Kelly would be the first guy in. Were you going to bring up somebody else? I don't even know who.
No, I mean, that one stands out. I don't know if people want to tell us to talk about Deion Jackson after he got on the YouTube thumbnail last week, but it seems like Zach Moss is coming back, so I don't think Deion Jackson deserves a mention unless you think otherwise.
No, I don't think otherwise. Okay. I think two running backs in the 5K range, at least, as of now, the way news stands now, are going to be popular for cash and are pretty good plays. First one, it's tough to say, but Rachaad White, and it's because it's a very good matchup at home against Chicago. Chicago has a bad run defense, and the game script projects to be running back friendly for Tampa Bay.
Let me ask
go ahead.
here. Rachaad White had 17 for 39 yards against the Vikings, and we just saw the Vikings just got ripped apart by DeAndre Swift. Is the Bucks offensive line that bad?
No, that's concerning. Rachaad White might be that bad also.
Okay.
Okay. So, but he played 76% of the snaps and got 19 touches. So you're right, though. It's tough because, the Bucks aren't great and Rachaad White is not great. But it's a good cash game play, or at least a viable cash game play. Maybe not a good cash game play. He's viable in cash because of the matchup. The other guy would be David Montgomery for 5,800. 21 carries last week, and this is one of the best matchups you could have against a bad Seattle defensive line in a spot that's projected to be like a pace-up spot with a lot of plays on both sides. Something of concern there, though, is Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs, standout rookie. He wasn't, people were pretty disappointed in his usage last week. I think just 9 carries or something, but that's going to increase as the season goes. I think Dan Campbell said publicly it's going to increase as soon as this Sunday. Mm-hmm. So there's a little concern there for Montgomery, but that's, more for tournaments. If for cash games, he's still okay.
Yeah, cash games. I don't know if is there a second running back that stands out in cash games? It's kind of like a mixed bag, I want to say.
No, but like if you're playing Kelly, like either Montgomery or White seem fine. Yeah. I'm not sure any of them stand out. A lot of guys in that range. I think there's a lot of guys in that range that are good tournament plays.
I mean, you have the Ravens running backs, but at Cincinnati, you probably wouldn't go there. You have the Bears running backs, and we still have, questions about Herbert and Roschon Johnson, what that role is actually gonna split out to.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys in that range. James Conner projects well for 6,200 in a matchup that actually doesn't look that bad for Arizona after we saw the Giants on Sunday night look absolutely awful. And Arizona actually controlled that game last week against Washington, which was a bit surprising, at least for periods. Dobbs looked okay.
Yeah.
Conner would project for a lot of touches in a decent matchup. So, I see him projecting well. Someone I like is James Cook in the same range. He looked really good. He was the lone bright spot. Well, Stephon Diggs too, but for that Bills offense, I was really impressed. And if he's going to get that much playing time, he's sort of the Bills version of Tony Pollard. Playing for a great offense, catching passes. Maybe not one player stands out, but all these guys are pretty good value in this upper mid 5K to low 6K range. They're all pretty good value.
Yeah, I mean, you could pretty much go down a lot of these guys around this same price. I mean, even Joe Mixon home against the Ravens. We already talked about that game. He's 6,500. I think a pretty good tournament route because we know what he can do. And we talked about this matchup and the Ravens injuries on defense. Don't think he's going to be that popular. He's kind of in this I don't know if I want to say dead zone, but he's kind of sitting here at 6,500 and I don't know what the public sentiment is on him after what happened, what's been going on with him, but home against the Ravens, we know what his role is with the team as well. So
no, I'm with you. I don't think the public sentiment is very good on him, just in general. And especially after people played him last week, he wasn't great. The Bengals weren't great. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
As a former Packers fan, what do you think about A.J. Dillon if Aaron Jones doesn't play?
Former Packers fan. Yeah, I'm still a Packers fan. I think that would be a big talking point. Aaron Jones, as of Friday morning, it seems like 50-50, right?
I
I
don't
don't
think he's
know.
going to play. I don't
No,
think
you
so.
don't. I didn't earlier, but I don't know. They seem hopeful. But yeah, let's say Jones is out, then yeah, that's tough. That matchup against Atlanta, it's supposed to be slow. It's not the greatest matchup, but if Dylan, how much work would Dylan get? They have some other running backs that played too when Jones went out last week. What I would do is, if that was the case, I would look at different projections and see where Dylan projects in terms of point per dollar value and in terms of ownership, and let that influence my decision for cash games.
Patrick Taylor got 5 carries against the Bears.
That's what I mean. Like, so there's.
I mean, I wasn't
just
watching that game, but they're up by 18 points at the end. Wasn't it him just running the ball out? He was on the. They put
No,
him
it was
back on the
like
practice squad after the game.
Okay, the game was closer than that,
Okay.
and then there was a pick six right at the end, and yeah, no, I'm just saying. I would look into it, but I'm just saying I want to be careful in that Aaron Jones being out doesn't just mean Dylan's going to get
30
100% of the
touches.
work and start
Yeah.
catching balls. I mean, AJ Dillon's not Aaron Jones. He looked kind of he didn't look great last week.
I think you could say that for, the last 5 years probably.
Yes, that's what, like, he's not Aaron Jones at all.
Not the
So
same kind of running back at all, no.
no.
We're getting a question here on Facebook. JP's asking, any love for Algier at 5,500? 5,500. I mean, been talking about a lot of these 5,500 guys in this range, but I mean, he's in the same range as Rashad White. I don't know if I'd go with, a split roll, 1/3 of a roll for the Falcons. I know what he did last week, but are they going to be, winning for the majority of this game? I don't know. I mean, aren't they underdogs here?
Yeah, I think there might be 1 point underdogs. They're
1.5 point favorites per
One and a half
Fanduel
point
here.
favorites. Okay, but yeah, anyways, not for cash.
No.
That's a tournament play. The Packers actually have one of the better defenses. And yeah, I mean, I know he got the goal line carries last week and scored twice. That was a fantastic matchup for Atlanta at home against Carolina. No, not for cash. It's too risky for cash.
Oh, one game we haven't mentioned, Travis Etienne here. I had him actually in my dummy squad, but 6,900. Again, it's his Chiefs. He'll be more popular though, I think, because it's his Chiefs Jags matchup. Unless you think otherwise, because of his price. But I mean, he got plenty of work against the Colts, and I think that's just going to continue here.
Yeah, I like Etienne. He'll be somewhat popular. You're right, because of that game environment. But we know people were off Etienne sort of all off season and on Tank Bigsby, and it seemed a little bit ridiculous. Tank got a couple carries, I think, inside the goal line, but yeah, other than that, Etienne looked good. He broke tackles, and really, what was most encouraging was that he caught 5 passes. That was part of the reason why it was always tough to roster Etienne last year. But if he's going to stay that involved in the passing game, yeah, love him for tournaments.
Yeah, before we move on to wide receiver, what do you think about Tyjae Spears here? Maybe kind of expensive, but just in terms of tournaments, maybe just throw a dart here at the board. All this talk is about, okay, he played in more snaps than Derrick Henry did, and of course that meant he was just on the field and didn't really touch the ball that much. But against the Chargers, we just saw what the Chargers did. I mean, is there any chance that like Spears is some guy who can hit 20 points kind of out of nothing just because he's on the field in a game that could have a lot of points?
That's tough. If he's gonna play, this is what I'll say. If he's gonna play 54% of the snaps again, then there's a chance. I mean, think if the Chargers get out to a 14-point lead or something, or they're up double digits in the second half. Yeah, wouldn't be shocking to see him catch 5-6 passes, maybe score. But yeah, that was
4 targets. Yeah.
Right about Henry. Maybe that's what's going to happen. Henry played less than half the snaps. He was involved in the receiving game a little bit too. I don't know. Maybe that's a situation I'll take another week to wait and see on.
Yeah, not sure it's the best idea to use your big money on Spears or anything. But anything else at running back that stands out? Dameon Pierce breakout game against the Colts, 5,600.
Yeah, he's another one of the guys I was thinking of as a tournament play, just because no one's going to be on him, and they're going to be on other people in that range. I think you could say the same about Javonte Williams in a game where, I mean, again, P. Ryan's going to get some work too, but for me, Javonte is the one with big upside, and that's a pretty good matchup. That's a pretty good matchup at home against the Commanders. So yeah, I like looking for tournaments, getting leverage at running back. Like you're not going to see me show up with David Montgomery in tournaments, not because I don't think he's like a decent play. Just I'll try to play a lower owned guy.
Who do you think the most popular running backs are going to be here? McCaffrey and someone else? I just feel like we're talking about all these guys. It's like, yeah, we kind of like all these guys, a lot of them at least.
Yeah, you're right, and that's going to have it spread out. And it's tough to say on Friday morning, but I'll list off the top like 6 or so guys, and in the low 20s, McCaffrey, Montgomery, Rashad White, Joe Mixon, a little bit lower, James Conner, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs. So but no one's gonna like stand out as crazy chalk.
Yeah, if
But sorry, that's Josh
Eckler
Kelly.
is out,
Josh Kelly. Yeah.
Okay. He'll be up there for sure.
Yeah, he'd probably be the most popular running back on the slate. Yeah, those projections aren't accounting for Eckler being out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at that point in tournaments, you just go the other way. You just fade him and hope he gets 5 points and kills all the lineups.
Oh yeah, fade him, and hope. And it doesn't matter if he gets 11 points, even a lot of times like that. That won't be enough.
Mm-hmm. All right, before we get to a wide receiver, though, talking about Bettor Vision. No, this is not an eye doctor. I think we can all agree that fantasy sports are awesome. So is daily fantasy and sports betting. That's why we have so many friggin' accounts. Why? What's not awesome is going to a bunch of different apps to find the best odds and manage all your fantasy lineups. Enter Bettor Vision. That's Bettor Vision. Bettor Vision is the only app that syncs all your fantasy, DFS, and sportsbook accounts in one place. We only show you the best odds for every bet, so you always get the best value, and our dashboard is the only one-stop shop to track all your fantasy matchups, DFS picks, and bets. Visit bettorvision.us to download Bettor Vision today. That sounds intriguing. One app for fantasy, DFS, and sportsbooks. Interesting. I'll have to check this out after reading this ad, but all right, Ryan, wide receiver. A lot of this is kind of, correlated with quarterbacks and all that. So we'll read some comments after we talk about wide receivers here. But so, initially we're talking Jaguars, Chiefs. We mentioned the issue with, the Chiefs wide receivers. Is Calvin Ridley at 7,200? Is he going to be the most popular wide receiver, or is it going to be one of these? I think it is going to be him. You think it's going to be Calvin Ridley here at 7,200? Man,
there's so many guys in above average to really good spots in this range. It's one of the toughest weeks I can remember in terms of that. He's going to be up there, but I don't think the most popular. No, I think the 4 most popular in that range are going to be Diggs, Chase, Adams, and Amon-Ra. I think all those guys are going to be popular. It's good spots for all of them. You mentioned for me, it's in tournaments, it comes down to who you're stacking for the most part. Maybe you can play 2 of these guys in some lineups. And then Ridley too. Yeah, Ridley's the 5th guy. So those 5 guys are all going to be popular. For me, it's really tough to pick one. I mean, I kind of like them all. That's not a good answer, I know, but it's a weird week. I mean, how can you not like Diggs at home against the Raiders, right? He had in a very tough matchup last week. He looked good, 10 catches, 100 plus yards, touchdown. This is a bounce back spot for the Bills. Same with Jamar Chase. I mean, we don't usually get Jamar Chase under 8K. Bounce back spot for the Bengals. Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the best spots the Lions are going to see all season at home against Seattle. I mean, amazing spot. Devontae Adams, same thing. And then Jacoby Myers being out bumps Devontae Adams up. And that's a good game environment. And then you mentioned Ridley. So, like, I don't know. How can you not like all those guys?
I know this is cash games, it doesn't really matter, but would you correlate your quarterback with the wide receiver? Because we have the Diggs Allen situation, we have the Chase and Burrow.
Good question.
We got Goff, St. Brown, Ridley, and Lawrence. I mean, all of these can be correlated here.
Yes, good question. For cash games, no, that doesn't matter at all. I think for cash games, you're probably not playing Diggs. You're probably not playing Diggs for cash games because Ridley's going to project better point per dollar, and even Chase and Adams might project better point per dollar. So I'm not sure that's a good question. I'm not sure I don't think you get to Diggs with Allen, and that also might be too much correlation in the off chance that Allen fails. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of like St. Brown here. I was going to say
too. Yeah, I do too.
I was going to say I maybe like his point per dollar value a little more than Diggs here, but I mean they are the same price, but I think I just like him overall here in this spot. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're looking at Diggs' numbers. He had a big game, but I feel like a lot of that was late, where like Allen was just going to him. His last 5 receptions were just like maybe not overtime, but towards the end of the game when they're trying to get that late field goal, something like that. But okay. We talked about all these top above 7K guys are all pretty likable. Your guy Nuke Hopkins here is 6,700. I think you're going to play him in all of your lineups. Is that right?
My guy Nuke Hopkins. No, I'm not going to. He didn't practice on Thursday. We'll see what happens today. I do like that he saw 13 targets though. He actually should have had a better game than he did.
Not a good sign.
Can go both ways on that. Yeah, not a good sign that he's already missing practice. Though I'll say that.
Definitely not.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for me to be in this range, but I think it's going to be tough for everybody to be in this next range.
Yeah, it's almost you go above 7K or you go like below 5,500 or even 5K kind of a thing.
Yeah. So yeah, sticking for cash games. The next guy in consideration is Deebo Samuel at 5,600, who projects very well point per dollar. And then below that, Puka Nacua, 4,900. The story of last week. Puka looked great. 15 targets. That's crazy. He caught 10 balls. Stafford looked great. Puka looked great too. Go ahead.
He missed practice on Thursday with an oblique injury.
Mm-hmm.
Oblique, I don't know if it seems like it came out of maybe practice on Wednesday. I think probably only do walkthroughs even then. But okay, let's say he guts it out and you're starting this guy a rookie who's not completely healthy, or let's say he's out. Tutu Atwell is 4,700, but at that point against the 49ers, is this a trap?
Yeah, good question. It's annoying that Puka showed up on the injury report. I think must have been something that happened in practice. Well, so again, we'll see about that news today. If Puka was out, I'd be confident enough to play Atwell in cash. Just,
Just because he's 4,700 and he's going to get the targets, it doesn't really matter. Basically, that the
Yeah,
matchup kind of a thing.
Obviously the matchup's worse, but last week gave me enough confidence, in that Puka sort of turned into Cooper Kupp last week. If they were both out, Kupp and then Nacua, yes, somebody's got to catch passes, and Atwell actually looked decent last week. He had a big game too, 6 catches, 119 yards. And I think the plan is for me and probably other people, the plan right now is to play Nacua. So if, an injury prevents that, I think people sort of won't mind just playing the other Ram instead.
So this wasn't really on my radar, but I'm just doing some game log watching here as I'm scrolling. So Nico Collins had 11 targets last week for the Texans. So Michigan, Nico Williams getting targets from Ohio State's CJ Stroud. So that's interesting in itself, but they're playing the Colts. Sorry, did I say Nico Williams? Nico Collins. Collins is
You're in
48.
soccer mode.
Nico Williams, who is injured, but Nico Collins, 11 targets, and now he's playing against the Colts. I mean, you could argue, okay, the Ravens defense is maybe as good as the Colts defense, just based off what their injury issues are. But I might like Nico Collins more than Tutu Atwell here. If he's getting these targets here and in this matchup, I don't know. That's not bad. It's not bad.
Nope, that's not bad. I think that's a fair argument. I think Collins is a good play too. Probably a better tournament play than cash games. I just think the Rams guys are slightly safer. But yeah, I like Collins too. Should we answer? I see we're getting peppered with some questions here. Should we try to answer these?
Yeah, I mean we're talking DFS here, but we got RotoWire has plenty.
Okay.
RotoWire has plenty of avenues if you're looking for other stuff. Okay, I'll say no. Don't bench Waddle don't bench Waddle for Michael Pittman. Start 2 out of who's Montgomery. Okay, start 2.
That's a tough one right there.
We'll just say Mixon and I don't know. I don't know actually.
No, okay. Sorry, this guy's the question about Pittman versus Waddle. On the surface, yeah, it seems you'd probably just stick with Waddle, but I get why he's asking the question. Pittman sort of smashed last week, didn't he? Yeah. 11 targets, 8 catches, 97 yards, touchdown. I get it. But I'd still rather have the guy with Tua as his quarterback than with Richardson, at least as of now.
I still don't trust Richardson's arm, so that's what I'll say.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
We got done.
Cheaper receivers. Sorry, finish out receiver. I think that
Zay Flowers is in there. We mentioned him earlier. Christian Kirk's in there. Maybe Kirk's not there for cash games, but Zay Flowers for cash games, 5,000 as well.
Yeah, no, not for cash. I don't think. So part of NFL cash is following the ownership in a way, especially with these cheap wide receivers and just the ones that project best, like Nacua and Debo, and those guys they're going to project better than Zay Flowers. Like Zay Flowers is a tournament play. Cheaper guys, though, there's a lot of cheap guys I think you could take a chance on this week because the ownership's going to condense around a few guys. You mentioned Collins, but I got to throw in Van Jefferson. Dropped another big ball last week that might have been a touchdown, but everyone's on these other Rams wide receivers, so that in itself makes Jefferson a decent tournament option. We have these KC guys that maybe we'll get back to, but then even lower, Josh Reynolds looks like pretty decent value. Great game environment, 7 targets last week, 80 yards. Jaden Reed for 3,400, pretty chalky last week. Still really cheap. He looks okay. Like if you're looking way down there, I don't know. Is there anyone else for you?
Yeah, Jaden Reed is amazing. You should definitely play him.
Is that a joke or no?
No, he went to Michigan State. Sorry.
Oh yeah, like okay, he looked good.
Yeah, I mean, he was great in college. Yeah, I mean, he's 3,400, so it's like in this range. It's like if a guy's going to get targets and he has any bit of upside, he's he's in the conversation, I'd argue. So,
Yep.
do you have? I was just looking at these Bears wide receivers. If you had Fields, would you try and stack him with one of these wide receivers, DJ Moore or Darnell Mooney here? Mooney got more of the targets here. I think DJ Moore only got 2, but is that just like a stupid question here? Because
No, it's not a stupid question.
Who wants to stack the Bears passing game?
Yeah, I'm not gonna play Fields, but if I did, I would say not Claypool. That's what I would say. I would say not Claypool after
Yeah.
I
don't think
all
he's
that
even
there was stuff, just all those videos going around Twitter showing Claypool's lack of effort throughout the game last week against the Packers. It was reported that the Bears weren't happy with him. DJ Moore, wow, he disappointed a lot of people. He was going very high in fantasy football drafts of all kinds, and he kept getting steamed right up until the end. So I think a lot of people are hoping it's DJ Moore, Adam, but I'd probably be tempted to save the 1100 and go with Mooney.
Yeah, that makes the most sense. Unless they just force it to DJ Moore kind of a thing.
Right. So, but back to, don't want to overreact. Don't want to overreact about week 1, but I'd be tempted to save the money and go with Mooney.
One more guy I'll say, Treylon Burks. We mentioned Hopkins. If Hopkins is out, Treylon Burks is 4,500. He may be the number 1 receiving option then against the Chargers, who just got lit up. So
that's a great call. No, thanks for bringing that up. That's a great call. And if Hopkins were to be out, Burks becomes an instant cash consideration. I'm sure he would project very well if Hopkins is out. So yeah, I would have a lot of interest in Burks.
Yeah, it's almost a Josh Kelly situation, but at wide receiver. So.
Yes.
Okay, so before we get to tight end here, this is Chiefs wide receiver roulette. Okay, Kadarius Toney is their most expensive wide receiver. All these guys are 5,000. I won't read the price. We got MVS, Sky Moore, Rashee Rice, Richie James, Justin Watson, Justin Ross. All these guys actually had receptions in that last game. So is Rashee Rice your guy here, or are you willing to go elsewhere in terms of these wide receivers for your Mahomes lineups?
Man, what a tough question. Seriously, what a tough question.
Justin Watson, 50-yard bomb touchdown, 3,300. Why not?
Yeah, so I guess my answer would be, and we don't know this, but my answer would be whichever one's on the field the most, and I guess we're not going to know that. So you can't expect a lot of volume with any of these guys with Kelsey back. I mean, none of them could get a lot of volume when Kelsey was out. So you're going to need like a long touchdown. Now, all of these guys can score long touchdowns. I mean, that's sort of what MVS is known for.
Yeah.
Toney, we know him as an explosive player who can break long touchdowns. That's what Sky Moore was supposed to be. I will say, Sky Moore has not passed the eye test. He looks small. He looks not as quick as he's supposed to be. So I'm going to say no to Sky Moore. MVS, the worry with him is that he's going to lose playing time to these guys because he hasn't been very good. If MVS is going to be out there for 90% of the snaps, yeah, give me MVS, I think, because we've seen enough 50 or 60-yard touchdowns out of him. And that's, I guess, sort of what you're looking for. I don't know, Adam. Do you have Chiefs roulette? Yeah, who's your favorite?
I think you just go, no one's going to play Sky Moore. 69% of snaps, led the wide receivers in terms of snaps last week. You know what? I'm not going to play any of them. I'll just say it. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Maybe you just get a roulette wheel and put their names on it.
Yeah, we could do that. We could do that. I think that would be as efficient as just trying to pick one of these seven guys or two of these seven guys or something like that. So I think that's all the discussion that these Chiefs wide receivers need, because we're going to be on to tight ends next. We got the Travis Kelsey talk, and it seems like he's going to be back. But before we get to tight ends, football is back. Kick off the NFL season with vivid seats and score tickets to all the hottest matchups and biggest games of the year. Catch every pass, every tackle, and every heart-pounding play of your favorite team live and in person. And with Vivid Seats rewards, now you can earn rewards with every single purchase. Each ticket you buy gets you closer to your reward. Just buy 10 tickets, then simply cash in your credit toward your 11th ticket purchase. It's that easy. Plus, Vivid Seats is offering you $20 off your first $200 ticket purchase with code RotoWire. That's ROTOWIRE. From the 50-yard line to the upper deck, Vivid Seats has great seats for all the 2023 games that matter to you. Just visit vividseats.com or download the app today. Right. 7,600. Kelsey. Seems like he's going to be back. Unless you think otherwise, he's been a limited participant. Really seems like he's going to be back. That was Thursday. He's got a couple more days. It's going to be 10 days from that Thursday game. So Kelsey's going to be the number one tight end in terms of popularity. It's safe to say, but how many lineups is he going to be in for you where you're not using Mahomes?
Okay, I'm glad you said that, because he's not going to be the most popular tight end.
All right, I take it back.
He maybe should be, but I'm not sure he will even be like close. And people don't like to spend up for tight end, and especially with Kelsey coming off that injury, which I think is pretty much a non-issue. This was a bruised knee, not like a ligament problem or something more concerning. So I don't know what I'm going to do with Kelsey yet, to answer your other question, but I actually think people are going to struggle to play him because of all those receivers we mentioned, because of the Christian McCaffreys and the other running backs, because of so I think that makes Kelsey a pretty good tournament play. In terms of popularity, go ahead.
Yeah, you just got to find the money. That's the question.
Right, and that's what's tough, which is what's going to keep his ownership down.
Well, let's look at it this way. Would you rather have Kelsey or these 70 Devontae Adams in the same range?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that's a question.
Yeah.
And then you have to evaluate. Part of that is evaluating whether you can make up that value with a cheap wide receiver or a cheap tight end better.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough. It's tough this week.
I almost like the cheap tight ends better. Maybe,
Yeah,
but again, it's been a 1 week sample size. But I mean, there are a few guys in this cheaper range, like Laporta is 3,900. That's going to be a price that moves up. I think it's certain his price is going to be moving up as the weeks go on. Ertz had a bunch of targets. He's 3,500. He was supposed to be injured, but he started that first game and looks fine, I guess. Kincaid is 3,300. Musgrave 3,200. There's a lot of these cheap guys where we don't really see it. Like I mean, I don't know if I want to guarantee targets, but a lot of these tight ends, it seems like their floors, their possibilities are a little better than some of the 3 to 4K wide receivers, at least from what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and that's what's going to keep Kelsey's ownership down. So from a cash game perspective, at least right now, the most popular projects to be Luke Musgrave. People like what he did last week. It could have even been better. He fell down instead of making it to the end zone. I think he was second in all of tight ends in air yards. So yeah, I think he's a good cash play. The other guys you mentioned too, I think will be more popular. Like Ertz, people are going to see all those targets and play Ertz. Laporta looks good. both Bills guys look good and they're cheap. The other one to mention, similar with Treylon Burks, is Chiga Kongwu for 3,300. He would be pretty popular and project pretty well if something happened to Hopkins.
Kylan Granson also seems like he's going to be the top receiving tight end for the Colts. He's only 3K, so I mean, there's just a lot of guys down there. It seems.
Yeah,
like.
him too, and even Troutman. Actually, Troutman for 3K, 5 catches last week, and it's because Dulcich is out now.
Yeah.
Sean Payton went and got his guy Troutman from New Orleans. And yeah, starting tight end for 3K. He had 5 catches last week. People will play him in cash.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, the way probably everyone should see it is you either go with Kelsey or you go sub 4K, because what's the point in going Pitts at 4,200 or every 4,100?
Yes, no, you're
any of these
exactly
guys?
right. You're exactly right. And then obviously that brings up that those guys between Kelsey and the
Won't be
3K
popular.
guys are tournament options, like, because no one's going to play them. So you have to at least consider those guys in tournaments.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I mean, how many times do you hit on the correct tight end who gets 20, 30 points?
Not many, but my best GPP week last season was with Kittle in basically this same spot. I think, Kittle doesn't have many ceiling games anymore, but he had a couple. He has a couple. He had one last year for like 40 points and nobody played him. And my lineup wasn't even that good and finished second in a big tournament. So
yeah, I think Kittle is one of those guys who can do that. Have the 2
Darren
touchdown,
Waller, maybe
massive
too.
game. Maybe Waller. We'll see. I mean, he's been dealing with an injury, and I
You're
mean,
right, though.
it
Kittle's
is
the
a new
guy.
offense as well. I mean, Mark Andrews, once he's healthy, I guess he's in that range as well. But a lot of these guys under, like Evan Ingram, Higbee, like how many times are we going to see 100 yards and 2 touchdowns from them? One
Yeah,
in every 100 games. I don't know.
Yeah, Higbee's an interesting one after, many people were on him last week, and then it was the receivers that got all the work. We've seen Higbee as a 10-target guy a few times before, so it could happen.
Yeah, I mean, if Puka's out as well, that'll be
right.
That's something as well. So for defender here, as we wind down this massive show, I don't know what's the move. Just put in whoever fits.
For cash games, pretty much. So last week was one where the Commanders were going to be massive chalk, like some of the biggest chalk you'll ever see. And that's the case. When that's the case, you have to play that defense in cash games. This week, as of now, there's not a defense that projects to be massive chalk. I think the most popular will be Tampa Bay for 3,200 at home against the Bears. Now, that doesn't feel great.
Doesn't feel great at all.
This is Tampa Bay, right? But I think for cash games, that's probably the highest I go. So for cash games, you want to spend down at defense. Look, the Cowboys are in a fantastic spot, but they're 4K, and
it's a lot.
You can make an argument for it, sure, but for me, no. That's just not something you do in cash games. You need to squeeze all the value you can out of the other positions. The Cowboys defense, that's a good GPP play, in my opinion. Some other cash game possibilities, the Cardinals for 2,600. Again, the Giants looked so bad. So you have a home defense for 2,600. And then you can go even cheaper than that. I mean, the Titans at home, if Eckler is out, the Rams at home are only 2,300. The Jets are 2,700, and it's a very tough matchup, but they have a great defense. So, yeah, I mean, no, pick it. Take your pick.
I was going to say the Jets because even though the Cowboys won 40-0, I don't think their offense looked amazing. I don't think. I mean, they were up the entire game, so you throw that in there, and then you also have Brandon Cooks. Doesn't seem like he's going to be healthy, so they're already having receiver questions. So I think the Jets at 2,700. I think they're going to maybe get some turnovers. It's going to be a low-scoring game. I think this is a game where maybe neither team gets to 20 points, so that has to be in consideration as well. Mm-hmm. And then I mentioned earlier in the show, Seahawks have a couple injured offensive linemen. Lions home opener at 3K. I think that this is a pretty good spot for them to get maybe some sacks, maybe some turnovers, kind of a thing as well. So,
yeah, I like both those calls. I think getting off the chalk is like a pretty good move in tournaments this week. I mean, there's not going to be like massive chalk, but I think the two most popular will probably be the Bucks and the Cardinals, and both of those teams are bad. So
yeah,
that's chalk that I'm willing to avoid.
Yeah, I don't want to jam those teams. It doesn't feel needed.
Nope.
Yeah, so let's check out our optimizer and see what the optimizer tells us to use at defense. But yeah, rotowire.com/soccer trial. I'll give that one out for the soccer followers. If you play DFS and follow soccer as well, or if you don't follow soccer, we also have DFS soccer content that me and Ryan both take part in. So check that out on the RotoWire Soccer YouTube page. If you're interested in playing DFS soccer, let's see what this optimizer has here for us. Bucks defense, there it is. Secrets out. So, I mean, we look at this. This is, I didn't adjust any customizations or anything. I didn't plug anything in. You can do all that stuff. Check out the trial training video. But, okay, we mentioned James Conner. Gibbs is in here. Chase, Herbert. We didn't really mention Mike Williams. There's Christian Kirk, Troutman, Debo. So, I mean, pretty much, a lot of the guys we mentioned here. What are your thoughts on your least favorite player in the league, Mike Williams?
Oh, he's not my least favorite player in the league. I know you're referring to our fantasy football team. I actually like Mike Will. He's had a hard time staying healthy. One guy we didn't talk about, though, Mike Williams is a pretty good tournament play this week.
Yeah, especially with that Herbert stack and
with everything. Yeah. Eckler being out, Titans defense, pass funnel, not going to be very popular. Yeah, good bounce back spot for Mike Will.
Do you have one favorite tournament route you're looking at? Like, who is it going to be your most popular quarterback that you're looking at in tournaments?
Oh, what a question. Okay.
Is it going to be Burrow? I guess, should I just ask that?
No, okay. So I normally play about 10 to 12 GPP lineups and in single entries and 3 max contests. And usually I'll have 2 stacks. Sometimes I'll have 3. There's the very rare occasion where I'll go all in on a certain stack. This week, I haven't fully decided what I'm going to do, but, I alluded to at the start, the first tournament lineup I made was a Burrow lineup. So, I've been publicly supporting Burrow. So I'm
very publicly.
Right. So, who would I be if I didn't stack him here? As far as what my other stack's going to be, yeah, Adam, I'm deciding between the Lions, the Bills, Trevor Lawrence. Those are probably the 3 in consideration. Maybe I could get to Herbert if we get that Eckler news, and maybe DeAndre Hopkins is out, and maybe that opens up Okongwu and Treylon Burks. So, a lot of times the news influences what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what happens with the news on Friday and Saturday.
So yeah, once the news comes out Sunday morning, all the inactive news, just tweet at Ryan Belongia on Twitter and he'll get... No, I'm just kidding.
No, come in the Discord.
Yeah, go in the Discord, RotoWire. Once you're a subscriber, after signing up through rotowire.com/soccer trial, yes, that is right, rotowire.com/soccer trial. Then you just go to rotowire.com/chat, and there's an NFL channel. There's channels for all the sports we cover. we'll be in there talking lineup decisions, whatever decisions. Ryan's in there as well. He probably answers too many DMs about DFS lineups, but he is in there willing to answer questions. He's also on X at Ryan Belongia. I'm at Zdroik. Thank you for watching this DFS show. Good luck on these contests, and hopefully we're gonna win $1 million. I'm not gonna win $1 million, but someone will win $1 million, and I'm gonna go. You talk to Burrow. I'll go with Herbert. Let's go with Herbert. I'll go with Herbert. Okay, I might change my mind. Maybe I'll tweet at me. Maybe I'll change my mind. But thanks, Ryan. Thank you, everyone, and thank you to Rival Fantasy, Bettor Vision, and Vivid Seats for sponsoring this show.
Thanks, Adam.